Talk about the 3 Ps.
Okay, three Ps.
Yeah.
You know, it just came to be, well, I'll go back to the Rolly project,
Okay.
but I think this is true across the board. I wasn't even a small fish in a big pond for Disney. I mean, who is this guy that wants stock footage and is calling us and all that? And it ultimately took 8 years to get the stock footage from Disney. So I was talking to a group of young filmmakers, and I go, you know, there was 100 times I wanted to pick up that phone and, you know, or write a nasty email and all that, but I go, that's not going to do any good for anybody, you know, just temper it down. So I told them it was the 3 Ps: persistence, patience, and professionalism. And I made sure I practiced all 3 of those during that part of the documentary, as well as other projects, and it paid off.
Hi, my name is Jim Ellis, and this is Industry Insights, where we bring in industry experts to share their knowledge and experience to the next generation of filmmakers. We're here in the Film Hub in the film-friendly city of Vista, California, and today our guest is Ken Kebow. We thought it'd be interesting to bring in someone who's been in the industry for many, many years in San Diego and has been successful. He's worked with such clients as Google, American Airlines, Ford, and the United States Marine Corps. He's been recognized by Video Magazine as one of the top documentary producers. So it's great to have you here, Ken.
It's great to be here. I love this space. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. It's been a while.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we've crossed paths so many times through the years and never really sat and got to talk. So
no, it's always business and we're always in a hurry. So it's great to get your phone call. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great to be here.
And you see, we're very like-minded as producers because I just looked at him and I go, we got the same shirt on, we got the same jeans on. I don't know if that's indicative of our age or what.
It could be.
Here we are. And so you are living in Vista right now.
I live about 5 minutes from the Film Hub.
Yeah, so it's there's so many producers here in town that we've met that we didn't know were here, which is pretty interesting. I guess some of the questions I'd like to start with is, how did you decide to get into video production?
I was one of those geeky kids running around with a Super 8 film camera. So it was kind of in my blood. I had a couple uncles who were in the film business up in LA, and I think they got me excited about it as a youngster. And yeah, once I got a camera, I was probably about 8. That was the beginning of everything. I just loved it and just figured I could make it as a career, and it worked out pretty well.
This is crazy karma because I also started with a video.
I had Super 8, yeah.
Did you too? Yeah. At 8 years old.
No way.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad we're having this conversation.
I know.
We'll know each other so well.
I know. Probably we'll find out we're married to the sisters or something.
Twins separated at birth, perhaps.
Yeah. So was there anything deeper than, well, your uncles were in the business? I mean, there was some passion that you wanted to portray into the world with that industry?
Yeah, I think it's probably just the power of images. I've always enjoyed still photography as well. Always loved the movies and just escaping for 2 hours as a kid and watching whatever it was you were watching. I just realized the power of the experience of watching a film, watching a video, how you can communicate people, change their minds, enlighten them. And I think that just kind of stuck with me. And I wanted to be a part of that and be able to give those messages to folks.
Hopefully. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Change the world in a positive way.
Yeah, that's been a lot of it, actually, especially lately with the documentaries. Yeah, just putting good stuff out there. Like you do the same thing, just putting good, positive stuff out in the public.
Inspirational stuff.
Yep.
Good. And I agree. I think art in any category is very inspirational and really can change the way people think and feel, right?
Yep.
What would you say is your favorite part of working in the industry?
Probably the collaboration. The people in this industry, as you know, they're great. They're creative people. They're incredible at what they do. There's such a team feeling when you're on a production, whether it's a day or 10 days. You know, it's like a little sub-family in a way. You're all working together. But I just love the collaboration and just the people that it brings together. And you know, it's ultimately a short amount of time where you have a finished product, something you can look at and say, hey, we all did this. And that's not true in a lot of careers. I think you get that satisfaction down the road, but we're able to do it in a couple months, a couple years, and really come out with something that says, hey, we all work together to make this happen.
Yeah.
I like that part of it.
That is fun part.
Yeah.
Working with such talented people.
It's amazing. Yeah. And just watching everybody with their craft, because in San Diego, you have to kind of do everything for a while, just get to know, and then you'll hopefully get to a point where you hire an audio guy and and do all those things you did by yourself. And it's so cool just to watch people who are really good at that stuff do their thing. And it's really nice if you're in a director or producer position and not have to worry about that stuff because you got good people doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a nice environment to be in.
That's great.
Yeah.
Your first project. How did you get your first project?
Boy, that's it. What was my first? First project. Now this isn't really corporate stuff. Me and a buddy, a guy named Mike Sarayan, did a show called Wavelength on cable access TV. And it was a surfing show locally here in San Diego. And that led to us getting taken to the North Shore in Hawaii to shoot the Triple Crown, which used to be, the Waimea Bay, Sunset and Pipeline. So that was really our first gig. We kind of that was our passion stuff. And then we did weddings to make ends meet. So we had a little business together. Weddings paid the bills, and the surf stuff didn't make much money, and it was really fun and kind of fed our passion towards surfing. So that out of college, that was really one of the first things that got us going.
That's great.
Yeah.
I just started surfing.
No way.
Yeah, my son-in-law wanted to learn how to surf, so I said, I'll go out there with you.
Good for you.
Yeah, you got to come out and give us some pointers.
Oh my God. You know when the last time I stood up on a board? I've turned into a boogie boarder.
Oh, yeah?
But I'll give it a go. My knees aren't what they used to be. I found out last time I tried surfing. It's like, by the time I get up, it's...
Yeah.
Isn't it fun, though?
Yeah, so
it's
fun.
A blast.
Yeah.
It's a blast. Yeah, I grew up surfing, so I've done it a lot. Just getting in the ocean, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's a great first project. Shoot.
It was fun. We were very lucky.
My goodness.
Yeah, it wasn't about money as much as just going to these cool places and, getting to, just see these great surfers on these huge waves.
Yeah,
so it was fun.
Right. My first job was Hewlett-Packard Computers. It wasn't too exciting.
I did a few of those, too.
Oh, man. Oh, I take that back. I did a cool job. I did some sailing in the Virgin Islands. I did,
Oh, that sounds fun.
I forgot about that. That was fun.
Yeah.
Strapped to a mast on a sailboat with a big 3/4-inch camera.
Those were the days, right?
Well, that's great. Tell me, what do you think, going through all the aspects of production, what is your favorite, or what do you think you're the most proficient at?
I would say two things, if I could. And it's funny, I was talking to someone about this the other day. Later in my career, I did a lot of directing. And I don't consider myself a really good director, but I think what I was able to do, and I think this is important, is create a really good feeling on the set. Very positive, humor, light, taking the work very seriously, but just creating a very good environment for everybody to work in. And I found I think that's probably one of the most important things to getting a good product. If everybody's in a good space and there's a certain amount of rush and schedules and money and all that, but if you can get everybody in just a comfortable, fun, enjoyable space, I found that people do their best work.
Right.
And I think that's what I brought to the directing more so than my talents as a director, which I don't think are that good. And now I really enjoy editing. I really like putting the pieces together and making a story out of it. Production, I'm semi-retired, so I'm not doing much of that anymore, but I remember just being able to create a really good space for people to do their best work, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, that is so important. You're right.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it was funny. We were having a conversation with someone. I did a lot of law enforcement training for California with a group Digital Outpost in Carlsbad. And I remember sitting down at lunch with somebody and going, what do you like about directing? I go, I'm not a good director, but I think I can create a good space for everybody. Yeah, I think that's true in any business.
Yeah, you're right. And getting actors comfortable.
Exactly. It's just everybody does their best work when there's a certain amount of pressure, but if you can minimize that and let them feel like they can do their best and not worry so much about the time and the schedules and all that. And sometimes it comes back and bites you, if things go a little long. But then you look at the final product and you realize that, people have done really good work because they weren't so concerned about those things.
Yeah, exactly. We used to bring a bottle of wine on set to loosen them up a little.
We've had a few cold beers after the set. It's funny. It's just, and I think that works for clients too. It's also, I think if a client is there or several clients and they see everyone kind of in a good space, good positive space and relax and there's humor and there's jokes and everybody's having fun, I think they get a good feeling about what's going on. Obviously the work's really important. That has to be done well, and I can't speak for you, but I've been on shoots where it's not fun and it could be fun, but it's just not. Yeah. And I think some people just kind of take it a little too seriously.
Get a little uptight.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be that way.
Right.
Yeah, I think people do better work when that pressure isn't there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we know you're spending $88,000 today, but don't worry about it. We got
I'm
you
having
covered.
a good old time, yeah.
We got you covered.
Then I'm in a producer role, and I'm probably kind of going, come on, quit having fun. Let's get this done.
What was the most fulfilling time?
2 projects. We were talking a little earlier, and I paid my bills doing corporate work, and I enjoyed it a lot, worked with some great people. But every 4 or 5 years, I'd need what I call my sanity project, and I love documentaries. So I would make sure I did those on a regular basis just to kind of remind me of why I like the industry so much and why I like this career so much. Because corporate's great, but it can be a bit of a grind, and then you get the schedules and the budgets and it's a little bit different. So 2 documentaries stuck with me. One was we did something called Lincoln's Greatest Speech, which was actually his second inaugural rather than Gettysburg. And I worked with a Lincoln scholar named Ron White. Brilliant guy. I saw him speak and I go, we got to do a film. And then
I never heard of his second inaugural speech.
Yeah, I'll get you a copy of the program. Yeah, it's Lincoln considered it his best speech.
Huh.
Yeah, it's interesting. But through Ron White and just continuing to push that, we ultimately ended up working with Richard Dreyfuss on that, which, as a career highlight, that was definitely it.
And he lives down here.
He's in Leeuwenhoek over near Encinitas.
Right.
Yeah, pleasure to work with. It was just a great day. Yeah. He's a huge Lincoln fan, so that helped. But through a little wrangling and knowing a few people, that was definitely a career highlight, as well as working with Ron. And then I did a thing called The Whimsical Imagineer about Rolly Crump, who actually is local as well. He lived in Carlsbad and Fallbrook. Unfortunately, he just passed away a couple weeks ago. But he was one of the...
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
93, so good long life.
Good for him.
But he was an original Imagineer who worked right alongside Walt building Disneyland, and Small World is basically him and Mary Blair. All the stuff you see on the outside was Rolly's. Loved propellers, and you'll see that. And he did the Haunted Mansion Tiki Room, but he was he was one of the original Imagineers, and I got to tell you, Jim, just the best storyteller. We talked for about 7 hours during the interview. I think I asked 6 questions because he would just roll from one to the next to the next. And it was just the greatest day ever because I just sat there and I just got to listen to all these great stories of, working with Walt and building Disneyland.
Right.
Those 2 were, and those were both passion projects. Those are probably 2 of the highlights.
That's cool.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah, I imagine you probably learned a little bit about Walt Disney too from him.
Yeah. What was interesting, we talked to quite a few Imagineers, and there's all kinds of stuff over the years that talk about people, but they could not say enough good about working with Walt. They loved Walt, and Walt had a hands-off approach. Go build Small World. And he'd occasionally check in, but he didn't micromanage anything.
Right.
And I think that's part of the magic why it works so well.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he always had that. He knew that there was something good in everybody.
Yeah.
And that's why he was able to.
I think you're right. Yeah, he just gave him a project and off they ran. And I think without those limitations, that's why such incredible stuff came out. I mean, Rolly's work is still standing 40, 50 years later. People are still enjoying it.
And who doesn't know It's a Small World, right?
I got a great story for you real quickly.
Yeah.
Rolly told me when he was building that, because everyone complains about that song, he goes, listen, try listening to that 24/7 for weeks at a time, because as they were building it, that thing just would play. And he goes, I don't want to hear anybody complain about that song. I've lived that song.
Yeah. Oh, man, I thought it was a great song.
I love it.
I understand you got an Emmy Award for one of your documentaries, or a number of them. Which one was it?
It was called Conflict, Unity, and Love, the TKF story. And long story short, there was an incident in San Diego in the early 90s, I believe it was, where a pizza delivery man was shot by a 14-year-old gang member. And the father of the victim and the grandfather of the young man who pulled the trigger joined together after that and started a foundation to stop kids from killing kids. Amazing story, and a lot of little subplots in there too. We did a documentary on that. We won an Emmy. And interestingly enough, a young man who pulled the trigger, his name was Tony Hicks. He was just paroled from prison about 3 or 4 years ago. And now he's working with the foundation named after the young men he killed.
Yeah.
So we're in the midst of producing a second documentary about it called Forgiving Tony, that now follows his parole from prison into working under this foundation. But just incredible story of forgiveness and love and just dealing with conflict and just a horrible tragedy, but something incredibly good coming out of it.
Yeah, good thing you changed his life around.
It's funny. I remember hearing that story on the news and just one of those head shakers, like what's happening out there. and just followed it, and ultimately was able to get a grant from the city of San Diego, their county commission back in the day. And yeah, we produced a documentary and did pretty well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. That's great.
Yeah, fun, good passion stuff, good stuff that trying to put good positive messages out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Talk about the 3 Ps.
Okay, 3 Ps.
Yeah.
You know, it just came to be, well, I'll go back to the Rolly project, and
Okay.
but I think this is true across the board. I wasn't even a small fish in a big pond for Disney. I mean, who is this guy that wants stock footage and is calling us and all that? And it ultimately took 8 years to get the stock footage from Disney. So I was talking to a group of young filmmakers, and I go, you know, there was 100 times I wanted to pick up that phone and, you know, or write a nasty email and all that, but I go, that's not going to do any good for anybody, you know, just temper it down. So I told them it was the 3 Ps: persistence, patience, and professionalism. And I made sure I practiced all 3 of those during that part of the documentary, as well as other projects. And it paid off. And it's easy, you know, with an 8-year span, and, you know, I had an obligation to Rolly and other people. But just keeping your cool and being professional, being polite. Polite could be another P. I just, you know, thought of that. And just not giving up. I think that's the biggest thing. But always being professional. Don't, you know, you can have this great relationship, and if you handle it poorly one time, that's what people are going to remember.
Right.
And the people at Disney, this is pretty incredible, and they're good friends now, were 2 people handling all the licensing for Disney. I mean, the woman would write me back and says, "I'm sorry I haven't got back to you, Ken. We're licensing stuff for the Academy Awards." I mean, it was crazy that there's only 2 people doing that, but I understood their situation. It wasn't, you know, that they didn't want to help me or deal with me. They just had 2 people doing, you know, Disney licensing for the whole world.
Wow.
Yeah. So I tell filmmakers, you know, even though it's your priority, remember those other people have a million things going on too, and just keep your cool, persist, be professional, don't take it personally, and it'll ultimately happen.
Yeah. There's another P.
I know, I'm going to write a book.
We have 5 Ps now. All right.
Be a short book, but
that's awesome. Well, that's great. That's great advice.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating, obviously, but because it is your priority. But at the same time, I think you have to understand that most likely, most cases, people are doing everything they can. And sometimes there's just more urgent matters. But once they came through, they came through.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And that was the key. We got accepted in the Newport Beach Film Festival for the very first screening. And I told them that, and they got the licensing done. We had the imagery, but we hadn't finalized the financials of it yet. And yeah, within a week, everything was side sealed, delivered.
Nice.
So yeah, they rose to the occasion.
Cool. Another point that I think we talked about earlier about points for new folks in the industry was surrounding yourself with talented and positive people. Expound on that.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I'm kind of the mindset, Jim, that in this business and many businesses, everyone has access to the same gear. Most people have access, like in San Diego, to the same people. So you need to really do other things to set yourself apart. And obviously, some of it is talent stuff. I think a positive attitude goes a long ways. And I think a lot of that comes from surrounding yourself with not only talented people, but really positive people, good people skills, can talk to clients if they're asked questions, you know, just a good mindset. Because I've been on a shoot or two where one bad apple could spoil a whole bunch. And I remember, without mentioning any names, being on a shoot once, and everything went great, and it's a great product. There was one person on there that wasn't terribly positive, and the client came up to me afterwards, and that was all they talked about. So that kind of struck me that you really got to be careful, you know, because everyone represents you if you're producing it, or, you know, everyone has an effect on the project. So I think there's a lot of talented people out there. I think it's really important to find the ones that have a really positive attitude. And, you know, when it's the 9th hour and you got 3 hours worth of work to do in an hour, they are ready to do it. They jump to the occasion, and they rise to the occasion, and they get the work done with a minimum of, you know, problem and little complaining and stuff like that. Because it's a hard business for him. But I got to tell you, the positive people will carry you through. And again, I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It just creates a good vibe on the set and make things better. But yeah, I think if you have, you know, the latest in gear and good, talented people with a positive attitude, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, it's been a good experience. Yeah, and it may take a while to find those people, but they're all out there. And yeah, it's just a matter, as you know, as the young filmmakers are working on shoots and stuff, just watching people work, watch how they deal with people, and I'd like to work with that guy. And I've seen a lot of production assistants, because of their great attitude, suddenly, keep coming back, and then, maybe they're a grip and they're a gaffer or sound person. So it's a good way to be too for your own career. People like positive people.
Good point.
Yeah, yeah. And we all have our frustrations, and then we're in a challenging career. It's really fun and fulfilling too, but you can stay positive. It's going to take you a long ways. Yeah.
So we're talking about some of these bigger projects. What are some of the pointers in putting together, organizing all the moving parts to a production?
Yeah, yeah. It's actually, it's one of the challenges I enjoy. Actually, it's fun to sit down with paper and pencil and kind of figure it all out. I think there's a couple things to remember. Things never go as smoothly as you think they're going to go. So it's really important to schedule realistically.
Yeah.
And assume that stuff's going to take, another 30% more than maybe you think. There's just so much stuff that you don't plan on. I remember we were setting up for location and the city of San Diego decided to cut trees on that street that day. Those are the things that just make you kind of hold your head and go, what are we going to do? So more time, I think, than you think, because production doesn't go always as smoothly as one would hope, is really important. Good people, like we talked about, huge. If you could just tell so-and-so, hey, next setup's in this room, and we need it to look like this, and not worry about it anymore. That way, when you're ready, you just go in and you know it's going to look good. So I think the people are key, too. And I think, like the time with the money, it's always smart to give yourself a 20, 25, 30% cushion on most things, because there's always costs that you don't expect. Overtime is not an unusual thing, and sometimes it makes sense to go a couple hours over rather than a whole nother day. So I think just be very realistic and talk to other people about the schedule, as well as just really think through the money and kind of think about those variables. The other thing too is it's so important, if you can, to schedule your shoot if you're on location, not so much a studio. How much can you do in one place? Because you know as well as I do, setting up and packing up can be 2/3 of your day, and you shoot very little video. It's so much time to get everybody to a place, unload, set up, shoot. And if you have to do 2 more locations that day, it's going to be hours of just packing up stuff and moving. And the more you can limit that, the more production you'll get. We finally got to a point with some of the bigger corporate clients where we would set a green screen in their conference room, and all their executives would come to us rather than us going to every office, because you can get 12 talking heads done in a day as opposed to 2 or 3, and control the environment a lot more. So I think those are all really important. Don't forget to think about your moves, your setups, and your breakdowns, realistic schedule, and just make sure there's more money there than you think you need, because it usually ends up being one way or the other.
Yeah.
What about you? Same experience?
I would say so. Yeah. All the things you're saying certainly ring true. The problem solving, you have to have problem solving skills, right?
Huge.
So what do you do when the guy starts cutting a tree or a kid start jumping in a pool, right? I mean, I had one producer, we were at a hotel filming, and kids are screaming and yelling at the hotel pool, and they paid for the room. They can do it, right? So, and then we're trying to shoot, and so, the solution was, here, go take this, $50 and hand it to the parents. And so we did. We walked down the pool. I said, we're shooting. I know this is, your day, but can you, for an hour? And they're like, problem.
And there's the extra budget money that we talked about. You make a great point, though, Jim, and I should have thought about this, probably even more important than what I said. You got to have an A plan, but you got to have a B plan, and you got to have a C plan. Because you said something that made me think, you really got to be quick on your feet in this business. If there is a tree being cut or kids screaming at the pool, like you did, you got to have a way. You can't shut down production. You got 20 some odd people and a client, depending on you to make this happen. So run through those scenarios of what could go wrong as well, and have something that you can, maybe there's another scene you could shoot. Maybe there's an interior if it's raining, just make your schedule flexible enough that if something can't happen, you won't just stand around waiting for the rain to go away, type of thing. Yeah, that's huge. You gotta problem solve, like you said. You gotta always kind of be thinking ahead.
Yeah, there's so many things you'll learn along the way. Yeah. I mean, we were doing a feature film, and my partner says, "What about this individual?" And I knew, the reputation was that, he was hard to work with at times. And so I said, I don't know, And after the third ask, I said, well, you feel like he can do it, then we'll do it. And, because you want to have a set that's peaceful and not, and so we did. We brought him in and it was great.
The troubleshooting part of it is kind of fun. I mean, if you could get enough frame of mind that this is kind of a cool challenge, A didn't work out, what is B, and not look at it as, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But
Yeah.
more of a, okay, well, let's, take a little break and talk about this. I mean, some really cool stuff comes out of it that was probably better than you ever imagined.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That B plans, like you never would have thought of that. You never would have written it on paper. It just happened and it was brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Roly Crump used to call those happy accidents. He said that a lot of happy accidents happened at Disneyland when they were designing it that no one ever thought of. It's just like, wow, oh, that's a great idea type of thing. Yeah. So it happens in every industry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to be in that place where you can just be that free to keep your mind moving.
Yeah. Very true.
What else you want to talk about?
You want to talk about corporate a little bit, how that's
Sure.
changed? Okay. Back, and you'll probably remember this too, Jim. I'm dating myself, but we did a lot of work for Callaway Golf back in the day and loved it. Just, great company to work with. They were just on the rise. And, the founder and owner, Ely Callaway, was just a great guy to work with. But it was so different back then. There were big budgets, 6 figures for stuff, big crews, ad agencies. It was a whole different set of dynamics. And as I kind of moved away from corporate work, that was changing a lot. Let's say 10 years ago, 10, 15, we saw the budgets getting smaller. We also saw a lot more in-house production going on. They would actually hire someone as opposed to bringing an outside group like myself and some other folks to do the work. And that was kind of a result of, number one, they realized how much work they were doing and paying for, but also cameras became less expensive. Editing became less expensive. The whole dynamics of the financial part of it. So that world had a dramatic change. I mean, there used to be a lot of corporate money floating around for things. And during my career, I saw that as time progressed, it got less and less and a little bit tougher to do the best you could just because budgets were so tight. And that was kind of a defining moment too, in the sense of, I've got to look at some other ways to generate some money. And I was very fortunate that I became involved with the law enforcement training, because that was a great gig for 10 years, and law enforcement isn't going anywhere. So, the budgets were good. But the corporate world has definitely changed. And I think, again, with just the smaller cameras and a lot of kids that will work less expensively, which is kind of part of getting into the business and starting up. I don't think those big corporate budgets are around anymore. Maybe occasionally, but I think that used to be a lot of bread and butter for a lot of the folks I worked with and teamed up with. So
yeah, and my hat goes off to you because you survived through all that. There was a lot of work in San Diego, and it's kind of ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah.
But there was some tough times, and that's kind of the reason we built the Film Hub.
Smart.
Just keep moving in the same direction.
Yeah. Hats off to all the young kids who are getting into this now. I think they're so savvy, and there's so many places that need video, and they're finding ways to generate income and make a living out of it. So good. I mean, we did the same thing in a very different way, I think. But it's just the innovation that the kids have now, and the talent just blows my mind. There's just so many talented kids, young people, I shouldn't say kids, young adults out there that are just doing stuff that I'm glad I'm semi-retired. I can't compete with this.
Well, they looked at our work and
there
said,
you go.
We can do that. We can do better.
We can do better,
as we
exactly.
Did, right?
Yeah, we did. That's true.
Next generation's got to take it from here.
Yeah, but the opportunities for video on the internet and TikTok and this, that, and the other, which I'm not very savvy about, and I probably should be, but we never had those opportunities. It was, okay, go into Corporation A and produce a 6-minute thing about this golf club, and that's what you did, and then they distributed it one way or the other, but it didn't go out on social media, none of that existed. So it was such a different world. So there were projects, but I think there were fewer, more money in them, but now there's just so much video going on, and stuff can be produced so inexpensively. I think the opportunity is probably better than they've ever been for people getting in this career.
It certainly is, and that's why the Film Hub is working also, because everyone needs to produce content for their business, and whether they do it themselves or hire someone, they need a space. And so it's been working really well.
This was brilliant. I get the Film Hub. It's so cool to have this dynamics of all these creative individuals together. Because as a solitary producer, and I work out of my home, and I'm like I said, I miss that collaboration more than anything else. But it's such a great idea just to have everyone in the same space, just to brainstorm and think about and ask questions. And you guys have just done a great job, and I'm so glad things are going well. This has been a real boost to San Diego video and film production, just having your space. So kudos.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a studio concept where everyone's kind of under the same roof, right?
Yeah.
Which we kind of realized later. And I think the more you bring people together who are like-minded, that great things can come of it.
Yeah.
I don't believe that art is for art's sake,
Right.
but I think it's to develop people to their highest potential, whether it's a painting or a video or a movie. And so I'm looking forward to the future as well as here, as far as bringing writers together. Now, you did some writing for the Emmys, right? We didn't even talk about that.
Maybe we shouldn't. No, it was fun. That was actually really fun. Challenging, though. Yeah, we did, me and Reagan Matthews, who I used to work with in law enforcement, we did the local Emmy show in Palm Springs one year and wrote the whole show. I'd never done anything like that before.
So you're writing for all the people on stage that are announcing what?
So they had a space theme. So
a space theme.
Yeah,
so
I was right there.
Yeah.
But I remember going on the internet and Googling space jokes. Because the host is supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
And I forget who we had. We had one of the young actors from that show, Blackish, I think it was called. And I didn't watch the show, so I didn't know him, but he was great. But I remember just going, and they're kind of these kind of jokes where everybody just kind of holds their head. They don't really laugh. But that's kind of how award shows are. But I remember just going through all these space jokes and somehow integrating those into the script. It was a lot of work, but I was really glad I did it. It sure made me appreciate anyone who has to write an award show. I mean, boy, it was a lot of work, but it was fun. We had a good time. I got a few laughs, some of the space jokes.
That's good.
Not many, but a few. We got more ohs, but that's okay. Kind of the ergs than the laughter, but they were meant to be erg jokes. So.
But who found you? How did you?
Reagan Matthews, who I worked with at Digital Outpost, she worked on the law enforcement, and she was volunteer. It was all volunteer. She was volunteering for the Emmys and asked if I wanted to volunteer one year.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sure, why not?
All right.
Not having any idea what I was getting
So
myself
it was a
into.
regional Emmys.
Yeah, just the regional one.
Gotcha.
Yeah, not the big one. Yeah, this was I think it was in Palm Springs that year.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was fun. It's interesting to write. It's interesting to write something you think is funny and see if it is in front of an audience. It's the beginning and the end of my comedy career.
Or some of the things you write that weren't supposed to be funny.
You get the most laughs. Yeah. Well, you've done a lot of writing. I mean, you're working on a screenplay now.
Well, yeah, more and more. We had to write, doing corporate things. But then I ran into a filmmaker who kind of pushed me in that direction because we wanted to do these films together. So, yeah, I'm reading all these books, how to write. And he goes, just relax, just write, And so it's been fun. And so that's one thing I want to do is get people together and brainstorm, projects. You got a film, you've got something here. And we started it before COVID hit. It's called Spark Meetings. And I'll give you a call when we start them again.
Please.
But we'll do them here and we'll bring people together. Like, I've got a scene here and I don't know how to get the guy out of the room.
Oh, wow.
And then there's 8 people. Well, here, you can have them,
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, and help people solve their problems. So there's no concerns about competition. It's more of a collaborative, right? And that's kind of the theme here is not a non-competition feel. It's more of a collaborative feel. And that was something we had to concern about when we opened the Film Hub. Is like, you bring all these producers in, isn't that going to be a lot of competition? But everyone is so niched in what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great. We got the greatest people here. Need a fluid head or something, here, use mine.
Isn't that great?
And so, and they have been helping each other. And so that's my passion is moving towards writing. So that's what's fascinated me about what you did there. And see what we can produce, because that's the beginning of it all, right?
It is, yeah.
And if you have a good story, then all the other things fall into place.
Writing's tough.
Yeah.
I think
that's why we probably like it, because it's such a challenge.
Yeah.
And you do have to test it. You know, was this funny? Was this good? In your mind, it's funny and it's good, but that doesn't really matter.
I know, as I found out, you know.
Yeah.
It's funny, like you said,
Unless
when
you pay off for all the tickets.
right, yeah, which, yeah, it sometimes has
And
to
we have
happen.
done that too.
And it's funny when you show a final project, like you say, the things you think people will respond to one way, they'll respond very differently to, you know.
Mhm.
And like you say, sometimes you don't think a place is funny and people just think it's really
Yeah,
funny.
hysterical.
Yeah. So you got to be careful, because what you're doing here is, you know, I'm in my little bubble doing this thing, but a place like the Film Hub, like you say, there's so many people around you can bounce ideas off of. And
Mhm.
that's huge, because it's easy to do, especially the pre-production stuff and the editing in a bubble, because it really is a single person type of thing. So having people to show it to and get reaction
Yeah.
and feedback from is so important.
Yeah, you don't want to be a legend in your own mind.
No, you don't. It doesn't last very long. I thought of one thing for the young filmmakers that I didn't talk about. That's kind of interesting. I'd like your feedback on this too. I think it's really important as you come up through, whether you're working in the industry or coming through a community college or university, to produce something you're really proud of. That when you go out into the work field, you can show to people. I just remember when I used to work at Jazzercise running the video division, tons of resumes, tons of this, but not a lot of here's what I've done. And if you can give a potential employer, producer, something, said, hey, I was the director on this, producer, even camera person, lighting, sound, but I helped make this. And if it's a good, solid, impressive project, I think that will go further to kind of get you in than anything else. So if you can, with your friends, you know, get them together and do something you want to do, or if you're going to college and there's a assignment to do it, get something really that you're really proud of that you can shop around, because you're in a visual medium, so it's great to have a resume, and that's important. But
Right.
I mean, people are going to want to see what you're capable of putting together.
And even, you know, submitting to film festivals and get some recognition. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of student film festivals. I mean, most of them have a student category, very inexpensive to enter. And you never know who's going to see your film. You know, I've been to a lot of film festivals, and it's interesting who show up at those things.
Yeah.
You just never know who you're going to meet. So that's a great suggestion by you. That's a great avenue to get your work out there and get some recognition and meet some industry people. Yeah. And it's very cliche to say, you know, go for it, but it really is that. I remember the very first documentary I did. I'm a big space fan, you know, outer space, all that kind of stuff. And so I was sitting in my garage, probably in my 20s, and I go, well, what can I do without spending much money? Well, I love space. All the NASA footage over the years is public domain because taxpayers have paid for it. So I got all this stuff from NASA for next to nothing. And we shot a couple nights in the Air and Space Museum down in San Diego. And suddenly we had Blast Off, a kid's introduction to the space program. And Hallmark Kids Entertainment, which I don't know if they're around anymore, actually picked it up. And we did pretty well. So, you know, passion, didn't have to spend much money, spent a lot of time editing in the garage. And before you know it, you had a project that was on the shelf.
There you go.
And you never know.
Ingenuity.
Follow your passion and ingenuity. Yeah.
Guerrilla filmmaking.
Exactly.
Run with what you got.
There's a lot to be said for it. I'll tell you one. I was talking to somebody the other day. You'll get a kick out of this. I think when I finally figured I arrived in the world of production, when we were able to shoot a day at Disneyland before it opened, and we were standing on Main Street, and there was music playing, you know, as it does, and there's no people there, just the staff. And the woman who was escorting us goes, "Is that music a problem?" And I go, "Well, if it could go away, that would be great." And she got on her walkie-talkie, and 15 seconds later, there was no music on Main Street. I go, "Man, I'm arrived. I finally arrived." You know, that was a defining moment in my career. I said, "No music," and it was gone on Main Street in Disneyland.
Make that sky a little bluer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was probably the pinnacle.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
Disney opened a long time ago. Which one? Disney World?
Oh, no, Disneyland, but before they opened at 10 o'clock. We actually got in, really early in the morning. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm actually 107.
Yeah.
It just, you know. Yeah, no, it was just before they opened to the public.
Gotcha.
Which was a thrill in itself. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, that is kind of fun. Any other points you want to leave for new filmmakers?
I would just don't give up. Be persistent. You know, don't take no for an answer. It's like the Lincoln thing. I never in my wildest dreams expected to have Richard Dreyfuss. I mean, Academy Award winning, you know, one of the greatest actors, I think, of our generation, involved in this project. But it happened. And when there was an opportunity, you just kind of get your mindset that it's going to happen and move forward in that direction. So just don't give up easily. I'm a firm believer that a lot of people give up too soon.
Hmm.
And I think you probably realize that too. And for the 9 people or the 10 people that do it, 9 drop out, and that one that didn't give up usually ends up doing really well.
Yeah.
So persistence has a lot to do with it. You just can't give up at the first sign of someone not wanting to do it. I think you just
Mhm.
gotta, just push forward and continue to try, and usually things work out.
I think that's what you think about successful people in the industry or in any
Yeah,
industry, and they started with failure after failure after failure, right? Until
exactly.
and probably Walt Disney as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then finally he developed a mouse that could talk.
Yeah, yeah, and look what happened.
Bam.
Yeah, yeah, and that's interesting because through Rolly, Walt was at a point where he and his brother were penniless, and
Hmm.
then you said then the mouse came along,
Yeah.
and, but, yeah, I mean, what a different world it would be without, the Disney success
Yeah.
story.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's easy to get discouraged, and especially as a young filmmaker, but, I can't think of a better career for people. I've had so much fun as you have. We meet so many great people, get to go so many cool places, and just work with a great group of folks. And like we talked a little bit earlier, at the end of a little bit of time, you got something to show for your time.
Right.
It's not a
Yeah.
20-year project; it may be a year project, but then you've got something to say, "Hey, I was a part of this." Pretty cool feeling.
Well, I think it's some great information for those
Oh, I
who want
hope
to get
so.
into corporate work and or even documentary work. So thanks for joining us today on Industry Insights. Ken, thanks for coming
It's
in.
great. Thanks for having me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate the time.
If people want to follow you and see what you're up to, where's a good place to find you?
Yeah, kenkebow.com, Kebow. That's my website. And all my information's there. If anybody wants to shoot me a note or give me a call, by all means, I'll certainly give them whatever advice I can, and hopefully, give them something that's useful. But please reach out to me. I'd love to help. I really enjoy helping young filmmakers. I mean, it's been such a great part of my life, and anything I can do to convince people to continue that direction is a good thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
thanks, Jim.
And for more information on the Film Hub, you can follow us on Instagram at the Film Hub Inc. or visit our website at thefilmhubinc.com. So that's us. That's it for Industry Insights. See you next month.
The Film Hub. Inspire the creative. Ignite the world.